What's up, amigos? We're back with another Prodigy Maker segment. This time we're doing a top 5, and this is the top 5 reasons your practice might suck, or the top 5 reasons my kids' practice sucks. And we're in the classroom. I'm going to share with you some insight about what makes a good practice and what makes a sucky practice or a stinky practice. And the number one I will get to, we'll start with the top 5 and we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The 5th one is the coach talks too much. Coach talks too much. So this is a very common problem. If you're a parent or if you're a coach watching Naughty Naughty, you want to share all that great knowledge that you have, and you just can't resist. You can't resist bringing the kids in, giving them a lecture, giving them a pep talk, giving them a jibber jabber, sharing biomechanics, sharing tactical wisdom, sharing blah, blah, blah. The coach has to share his information and expertise, but you don't want to talk too much. If the coach is talking too much, it's going to be a stinky practice. It's going to be a lot of wasted time, and the kids aren't going to hit enough balls, especially if you have only one practice per day, which a lot of kids do after school. You have just one practice, hour and a half or 2 hours. You don't want the coach to talk too much. That will ruin a practice. The coach has to be judicious with the time that they use sharing information. So, number 4 is bad level. Bad level. So you parents may know this, but pretty much every club manager, academy director is going to try to tell you that the level is not as important as you think it is. And guess what, mom and dad? You are the right ones. The level is very important. Very important to practice with players the same level or above. From time to time, you can practice with lower level, but infrequently. It cannot be a regular week-to-week thing. If your kid is practicing with kids lower level or the same and lower most of the time, that's a bad practice. That's not going to get the job done. Your kid is going to progress more slowly. So it's important to practice with same level of competition or higher. That could be UTR level, or you could just measure it based on the kid's ranking or the tournament level. But very big mistake you see is that players will get stuck in a group class with kids who are lower. The academy director tries to convince the parent that, it's cool, it'll be all right, but it's not all right, because that environment will create low achievement. So, number 3. Number 3 is 5, 4, 3, too little or too much technique. Too little or too much technique and drills. So technique and drills. Too much or too little technique and drills. So some practices are a lot of drills, a lot of technical information and repetition and rehearsal, but no points, not enough play. And other classes are all play, all points, and no repetition, no drills, no technique. There has to be a balance. Obviously, this depends on the kid, depends on your player, mom or dad, or if you're a coach, players in front of you. Every kid is different. Some kids need more technique, more drills, more repetition out of a basket, typically like dead ball, and some kids need a lot less than others. So it depends on the kids, but in general, there should be a balance. If your class is all rote repetition, drills, that's going to create a stale player who doesn't know how to play. And if it's the opposite, if you have a class, and I know a lot of classes like this that don't do any drills and just focus on the tactics and play, you're going to get a player who plays and competes pretty well, but it's going to have flaws in their technique, in their game, and maybe missing certain skills or skill sets. So very important to have the right balance of technique and drills, dead ball versus live ball, tactical versus technical. It's good to have a balance. The ideal is to have 2 practices per day, one that's more technical and drill based, and one that's live ball and play tactical. But not every player has that. Only academy kids who are not in regular school typically do that. So if you have just an after school situation, which most kids do, that's going to be tricky. It's a tough balancing act to get the right amount of drills from the basket and live ball play. So consider that. Number 2, no serving or returning. No serving or returning. So again, if you have just 1 practice per day, which most kids do after school, there are many times, like here in New York, many times, or Northeast, where we have indoors and time on the court is limited, I see many practices that have very little serving or returning. Most of the practices may be drills and then baseline points. So parents, watch out for this. This will create a stinky practice. This will create less achievement, less performance gains for your kid if they're just doing baseline points. Baseline points are not a match, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but you gotta work the serve and return, because when your kid goes to a tournament on the weekend, it's not gonna be fed out of the hand. They're gonna have to serve well. They're gonna have to have patterns off the serve, like serve +1, the serve, and then what happens next, and they're gonna have to have return and return +1. So it's important to practice the serve and return and the subsequent shots that follow those and work on those patterns so that your kid feels comfortable in the tournament. A lot of times kids who say that they're having good practices during the week, like Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, but then they don't play well on the weekend, are typically doing a lot of drills or games out of the hand where it's hand fed, and they're not working real point play with the serve and return. So watch out for that. And the number 1 reason why your kids' practice sucks, you may know the answer because I was leading up to it. It's because no sets. There are no sets being played. And this is an epidemic problem around the country in the US, probably other parts of the world too, but no sets. Many times, junior players are going the entire week without playing a competitive set, which is a disaster. And then you show up on the weekend for the tournament and it's like the first set or 2 of the week. And that's a big problem. It relates to the second issue where you're not serving and returning, but you got to play actual sets. Sets are what make a player match tough. Sets are where it's at in terms of developing your patterns, really understanding how you're going to play the game, how you're going to hold serve, how are you going to get that break, and what are the exact patterns that you're going to use in an actual tournament. It's not the same to just play baseline points. It's not the same to do a drill. So it's really important to get a balance of technique and tactics and to do some live ball games and some dead ball feeding. But at the end of the day, you also need to play sets. So if you're in one of those situations that I mentioned where you're just playing after school, this can be a really big challenge because you have maybe your after school practice, and then when do you play actual practice sets? Maybe you have to schedule that later, or you have to schedule those practice sets possibly in the morning or in the afternoon before you go to your regular team practice or group practice. You got to find time somewhere during your day, if you have a long school day, to get a set or 2 in. Ideally, you play a set a day. That's very difficult here in New York, where indoor time is expensive and hard to get. It's a lot easier to do in some of the outdoor parts of the country where the kids play outdoor year-round, like Florida, California, Texas. And it's one of the reasons why those sections tend to do very well on the national level. New York does have a very strong section. New England has a decent section. But by and large, you see the top sections in the country, like Florida, SoCal, Southern Texas, those kind of areas, the kids have open access and long days of sunshine to go out and play lots of sets, and that matters. That makes a difference. So guys, that's the top five reasons why your kids' practice might suck. To review, number 5, coach talks too much. Basically, wasted time. You can't waste time in a practice. Number 4, bad level. Don't fall for the sales pitch that it's okay for your kid to practice each day with players who are lower level. That's not going to get the job done. Number 3, too little or too much technique and drills. You got to find the right balance. Number 2, no serving or returning. You got a whole 2 hours and it's all baseline, all ground strokes or volleys or whatever, and then maybe a little serving at the end. That's not going to cut it either. Last 10, 15 minutes of serving at that. Sometimes that's the best you got in a lot of these practices. And number 1, where are the sets at? Tennis is a game of playing sets. You go weeks and weeks and weeks and you don't play sets, you're going to have a crappy performance on the weekend when you play tournaments. So guys, consider that. It's our top 5 reasons your kids' practice might suck. I think it's pretty good. If you like this Prodigy Maker segment, check out my big show, Prodigy Maker Show. It's a podcast and it's also a live show on this YouTube channel. It's on youtube.com/Chris Lewitt. Or you can search for the Prodigy Maker Show on your favorite podcasting platform. Thanks, guys. See you on the next program.